Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! First story. Karen demands I give her a motor cart I'm bringing to my disabled mother. A bit of backstory. I was 28 at the time of this story. Me and my mother live together because I take care of her when I'm not working, as she is disabled and walks with a cane with difficulty. My mother and I went to the Mart of Wolves. I was wearing a red shirt that says, "Do me a favor and stop talking." My mother looked to the area for the motor cart and saw none there. So we tried to troop on with just a cart. I could see she was hurting as we walked and knew she couldn't make it all the way through our shopping on foot. "Mom, stop. I will see if a cart gets put back." "Okay, son." Mom just leaned against the wall as I dashed back to the entrance. Right as I got there, an older man was getting out of a motor cart, and I was relieved. I asked how the charge on it was and he said he had only been on it for a little bit and was still pretty full. When he got off and left, I hopped on and started to drive it to where Mom was. Right as I was about to pass the entrance pay area, so I hadn't gotten far, I heard a voice. And in comes a Karen. Not bashing, but this woman was, well, a land whale. I'm not a small guy either, a bit on the chub side, but I wouldn't say I was fat.
"Oh, thank God! An employee bringing a motor cart back."
Please note that I'm leaving the cart area and I'm wearing a shirt that is the exact opposite of this store's color. I looked back with a raised eyebrow. She then snaps her fingers and points at the ground in front of her. Her gaggle of children around her like a herd of sheep. Seriously, there were like 8 kids around this woman. Ma'am, I don't work here. I'm wearing a red shirt."
"Then why are you in a motor cart? Those are for disabled people."
She glares at me as she folds her arms in front of her. I roll my eyes at her and give her the stink eye. I tell her, "First off, you don't know whether I have a disability or not. Second, I'm getting this for my disabled mother."
"Screw your mother. I need it. I'm fat."
"Well, being fat isn't a disability, and neither is being stupid." With that, I motored away as she stomped her foot like a toddler who was cussing me out. I ignored her at this point and brought the car to my mother. I did not tell her about the Karen as I didn't want to think about it. As we shopped though, I noticed that Karen was apparently stalking us through the aisles. No motor cart, but I would occasionally see her peeking around a corner, glaring at me. We ran into one of my old friends who worked there as a manager. We stopped to chat for a bit, and I updated him on what's going on. It is funny that as I was telling him what happened, he looked beyond my shoulders and said, "You mean this Karen?" She was hunched over something, very obviously stalking and ogling us. He told me not to worry about it. I went to ask her to either stop being creepy or she'll have to leave. Looking over to the security guards, this turned out to be a good move because she attempted to throw herself against him to knock him off his feet. Which she did, to be honest. The security guards came and dragged her out of the store afterwards. We continued our shopping, and when we left, I made sure an older lady got the cart. Next story. Entitled mother gets mad when I tell her that she can't walk her daughter at a private property. Me, 22 female, and my cousin, 22 female as well, and her family have a beautiful property. Her mom will babysit me during the summer, so I basically grew up there. There are 3 houses with all of her dad's close family living there, which surrounds a big pond. There is a small boat dock and a tennis court and a pavilion. It's surrounded by forest except for the entrance. It is a totally private property, which means that they have big signs at the front of the entrance that says no trespassing. There is also another street sign halfway down the road that says no trespassing. Her and her family get really annoyed when random people come walking down their property and just ignore the signs. To get to the property, you have to go down a sorta long road that goes past a few buildings. When you first turn into the road, there is a Wawa. Americans who live in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, or Virginia, let me know if you know what that is. It's a deli shop / convenience store that has amazing food and coffee. A small strip mall and an apartment complex. I lived in that complex for about a year, which is when this took place. And now on to the story. When I moved into that apartment complex, I asked my cousin if I could walk my dog around her property. She of course gave me permission. One day after I was done walking my dog around the pond, I was leaving through the front gates, which again had the no trespassing signs. I saw this random woman walking with her young daughter down towards the entrance, who I have never seen before. I politely asked her if she knew the family who lived there, and she said no. I then pointed at the big sign and said, "I'm sorry, but it says no trespassing." She then gave me an annoyed face and said, "Well, you were just on their property." And I replied, "Yes, I was, and I know the family. I'm related to them, and they gave me permission to go down there." She said, "Well, my daughter wants to go down there. Are you saying that she can't explore?" I replied, "If it means that you are trespassing, then yes. I'm saying that you and your daughter cannot go exploring there." She finally gave out a big annoyed huff and turned to her daughter and said, in a very rude tone, "Sorry, honey, this lady won't let us go down there." And they finally turned around and started walking back. I felt like it would be awkward if I started to walk behind them back to my apartment. So I turned around and just walked my dog around the pond one more time and then left after that. The next day I was with my cousin and I told her about the entitled mom and she thanked me. She said how annoyed she gets when random people show up. I definitely can relate because I also have a property with no trespassing signs, yet people still walk down it. Honestly, it's probably the most ignored street sign in America. Next story. My entitled mother tries to use me and my siblings for tax fraud. All of this happened a couple of years back when I was still in university. This will be relevant later, but I was recently reminded of it. For context, me and my siblings were living with my father at the time and she moved to Switzerland to work there a couple of years before this. So one evening my mother just called me out of the blue and we didn't and still don't really talk because we don't like each other very much. You'll soon see why. And the conversation went something like this. "Hi, what's up? How much would it cost you to send me 1 million forint?" It was roughly $3,000 back then. What? Why? I don't have 1 million forint. Just tell me how much. I don't know, I've never sent that much money. I would have to check at the banking app. Why do you need that information? I'm going to send you 1 million forint, and you need to send it back, but I'll cover the transaction costs for you. But why would you do that? Don't worry about it. I'll send you the money and you just have to send it back when you get it. Well, I won't unless you tell me why. You can be so difficult sometimes. You see, here in Switzerland, if your adult children still go to school, you can send them a certain amount of money per year and deduct that from your taxes. I'll send you the money and you send it back, and you know. Oh, but isn't that tax fraud? Shh! Don't say that out loud. Someone might hear you. Well, I'm pretty sure the authorities can easily put that together. I wouldn't do that if I were you. So are you going to send the money back or not? Oh, hell no. Okay, whatever. Bye. Bye. After the call, I thought that was it. But then I remembered that I have 2 younger siblings who are sort of still under her influence, and I immediately called them to tell them, do not agree to send her back money, you can get into trouble. Turns out she already called him and was much more sneaky about the whole thing. Thankfully, they two found it too fishy to say yes. I don't even know what's worse in all this. A. That my mother's first thought after learning she can send free money to her children was, how can I keep this all for myself? Or B. The fact that after she learned she can't do that, she didn't send it to us either and she just paid her taxes normally. She's just something else. Next story. My first real experience was an entitled Karen. She refused to prepay for her daughter's dental checkup. So first, some background information. My mom owns a dental office, and she just came back from a 3-week vacation and left me in charge of the office. Now, my job description is quite complicated because I'm only available to help during the summers. And I know it may seem like I don't know what I'm doing because I got this job out of nepotism. But this is the first summer in almost 8 summers of working there where I feel I actually could handle the weight of the title of office manager. Something I've been trying to help my pushover mom with is standardizing policies. She grants a lot of exceptions for her patients, and it's very annoying unless she has an office manager who can stop her. But the pandemic lost us our last office manager, so I've tried to step up. We don't have a lot of difficult patients, but still, I knew there would be some pushback about enforcing policies. But I don't stay in the front a lot, and I'm still young. So this was my first real experience with an entitled Karen, and I'm pretty proud of how I handled it. So while my mom was gone, our associate dentist saw patients a few days a week. So I was the final authority if the more experienced staff had an issue. So one day, a patient comes in and assures us her mom will come in and pay after the routine checkup was done while she made the next appointment. Now this patient was a middle-aged adult. Judged visually, I never checked how old she actually is, but it was clear that she was dependent on her mom because of her mental faculties. I hope I'm not being offensive, I just don't know how to say it. She was super sweet and I told her that she needed to pay before we saw her because it was our policy. And honestly, I didn't think she or her mom would run off with the money. But the boss wasn't there, and I didn't want to take any risks. So I asked her to see if her mom would have a problem coming in to pay now. When she came back and repeated that her mom usually comes in to pay when she's done, I assumed that if her mother had an issue with walking or anything physical, the patient would say so. So I asked one more time, "Are you sure?" And I see that she gets nervous and she goes out to ask again. I felt bad putting the pressure on her to go get her mom, but most of our patients are really understanding, so I figured her mom would just pay this time and asked the doctor about it during their next visit. This old white lady comes in, walks straight up to the desk and immediately starts going off on me. She tells me about how she has been coming here since I was born, and she has never had to pay prior to treatment. I was very nervous because I haven't had anyone yell at me like that before. But I wanted to be nice and I felt really bad because I'm a pushover just like my mom. But I have the benefit of learning from her mistakes. I tried telling her that we were implementing a new policy, and I couldn't waive it for her because the boss is on vacation. But this entitled parent would not let me have a word in. So I waited patiently and listened to her while our 2 back office assistants stood behind me, clearly visible to all parties. Honestly, I was trying really hard to come up with a workable compromise for her while she was yelling at me. But then the entitled mother chose to use the wrong ammunition. She said she knew the boss very well and the boss wouldn't like how I'm treating her. And I dropped 90% of my sympathy for her. But I tried to be patient and understanding. Then she threatened to go somewhere else. And that last 10% of sympathy faded with her loyalty. I looked her dead in the eye, folded my hands on the desk in front of me and gently but firmly said, "Okay." The silence was long and deafening. The look on her face, priceless. I never broke eye contact, but I broke the silence and kindly informed her that I'm in fact the boss's daughter, so she needs to pay beforehand today, and she is free to take it up with my mom when she returns. I also purposefully called her my mom to drive the point home, because normally I would refer to her by title in the office, because I tried to make sure that no one could tell I'm her daughter. Well, because of professionalism. And she went from hostile Karen to kindly old grandmother in about 30 seconds. And yes, she paid for our services beforehand. I was shaking. With fear, pride, confidence, and anger. She tried to pull her loyalty card, but any patient who actually has enough treatment at our office, they know me personally, and would recognize me. I told my mom about it when she got back the other day and she laughed. And she said, I did good because apparently the entitled mother has never even been a patient herself. We make virtually no money off of her specifically. It's been a week and she hasn't called back about it. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.